Welcome to Cultivating Equality Stories of Women and Men, an audio learning program funded by Fyffes. Cultivating Equality was developed to raise awareness and promote understanding of gender equality in the company's operation, including both staff and suppliers. Each chapter will be an opportunity to learn about gender equality and business. As we move along, you will discover the opportunities that arise when we cultivate equality. Prepare to learn and grow together in our audio learning program. So, our goal in this chapter is to understand 8 key gender equality concepts: sex, gender, sexual division and roles at work, prejudices, stereotypes, and gender biases, discrimination, and gender equality. It is common to hear sex and gender being used interchangeably, and the same thing happens with prejudice, stereotypes, and gender bias. Perhaps you even feel distant or not really familiar with these words. And that's okay, because that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to define each of them and propose a working definition to set the stage for exploring what gender equality is all about at work and at home. Here, we're going to ask questions that you might have thought but have not really dared to ask, either because you're embarrassed or afraid, or perhaps you've been thinking that they're so obvious and it will make you feel silly. Or maybe you feel that asking these questions will make people uncomfortable. Or maybe, you've never asked yourself these questions. Wherever you are at this moment, it is perfect. We're here to learn and to grow together. And if you have already mastered these 8 terms, thank you for allowing yourself to go over them again. Okay, so now let's get started. It is my pleasure to welcome Stella Davis, Sustainability Manager at Fyffes. Stella, thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Thank you very much, Carolina. I'm honored to be part of this audio learning program.
Okay, Stella, so when you hear the expression gender equality, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
I immediately think of respect and the rights that we all have to equal opportunities, respect for the person next to me, because just like me, he or she deserves to live and work in a healthy and balanced environment. We all deserve equality.
For everyone involved in Fyffes operations, from staff to suppliers to contractors, to be able to discuss and provide input on this topic is very important. I propose then that we start by describing the key issues to understand gender equality. Do you agree?
Of course. How about if we start by defining what sex and gender are?
Sex is something that's defined in conception, right? So you can either be a male or a female. And humans are just mammals like whales, horses, cows, bats, and our beloved companions, dogs and cats. And in all of these animals, including humans, we have males and females.
Okay, so what makes a human being a man or a woman?
That is defined at conception. Basically, the woman provides her egg and the man provides his sperm. Each egg contributes one X sex chromosome, while each sperm contributes another sex chromosome, which can be X or Y. So, if the sperm has an X, the baby will be a girl, XX. But if the sperm has Y, the baby will be a boy, XY.
Okay, so the male sperm defines the sex of the babies.
Exactly. The sex of the baby is not determined by the amount of nausea that the mother has, or by the color of her urine, or if her hair, skin, or nipples change during pregnancy, or even if she has a black line, the one that some women have from the navel to the pubic bone, or if her belly is pointy or round or wide, or by the amount of craving she has, or by how much the baby moves.
Is it possible for the baby to change sex during pregnancy, Carolina?
No, Stella, that is not possible because sex is determined at fertilization.
Okay, so we could say that the sex of the baby is the characteristics of its body, of its genes, and this includes how the body functions.
Yes, and this is why women and men have different genitalia. Men have a penis and a scrotum and tend to have facial hair, broader shoulders, and a deeper voice. Women have a vulva, breast, and broader hips.
But I've heard that there are babies born with incomplete genitalia or genitalia from both sexes. Is that true, Carolina?
Yes, that's true. They were called hermaphrodites, but now they're called intersexual or intersex.
But this isn't common, is it?
No, it's not common, it's a bit rare, and it can be detected at birth, during the early years, or even in adulthood. There may also be people who have never realized they're intersex. I'm going to tell you and our listeners a real life story. From 1966 until the year 2000, female athletes participating in any Olympic sport had to provide proof that they were women. This was done with the intention that there would be no disproportionate advantage between the competitors or men pretending to be women. Do you remember the case of Maria Jose Martinez Patiño?
No, I don't.
She was a hurdler who was kicked off the Spanish Olympic team in 1986 for failing the sex verification tests. Let me invite you to take your cell phone or search your computer or tablet for images of Maria Jose Martinez Patiño. Ready?
Yes, I'm already looking for it. One second. Ah, I just found it. Yes.
What do you see, Stella?
So to me, I see a woman, Carolina. She would then be a person with XX chromosomes.
Exactly. Yes, she looks like a woman. She has the strength of a woman, and she never had any reason to think she was not a woman because she had breasts and a vagina, and she was a girl who just liked to run and jump. But it turns out that for the qualifying trials of the 1998 Seoul Olympics, the test showed that she had a Y chromosome, and that inside her vaginal lips she had an underdeveloped testes. For the Olympic team, Maria Jose was a man and therefore had an advantage. Hence, the right to participate in the women's track and field events was withdrawn. The publication of her story in the media led to a lot of negative situations in her life. She lost friends, her boyfriend broke up with her, she was expelled from the athletics league, her scholarship was taken away, and her achievements were completely erased from the history of Spanish athletics.
Wow. And can you explain why she was born that way, Carolina?
Because when she was conceived, her body's tissues didn't listen to the instructions that she should be a male, so she developed as a female. This condition is called androgen insensitivity, and it's one of the ways that intersexuality presents itself. I want to make three key clarifications on intersexuality. The first one is that this condition can be expressed at the genetic or chromosomal level, in genitalia or in reproductive organs. Only approximately 1.9% of the population has some sort of variability that does not conform to what we understand as female or male. Second, intersexuality is not a disease. It is not a condition that needs to be corrected. It is simply a biological reality given by a variation in the baby's gestation period. And third, being intersex does not mean that you're gay or lesbian or trans or queer. In other words, it has nothing to do with your sexual identity or orientation. To finish the story of Maria Jose, after 2.5 years of her struggle, she actually managed to prove that her XY chromosomes did not give her an advantage over other competitors precisely because her body did not benefit from having testosterone, which is the hormone we relate to physical endurance, muscle development, and speed. These discussions about whether athletes are women or if they're female enough continues to this day. For example, we have the case of the South African Castor Semenya or the Indian Shanti Soundarahan or Duti Chand.
Thanks, Carolina. Who would have thought that sex and gender would be an issue even in sports? This means that it is reflected in many other areas.
Exactly, Stella. Sex and gender are everywhere. When a baby is born, the doctor or midwife looks at the primary sex characteristics. Does the baby have a penis or does it have a vagina? If it has a penis, then it is a boy. If it has a vagina, then it is a girl. And this is recorded in the official documents. This initial criterion, which is so quick and automatic, is very important because it is the basis for the name we are given, the way our parents and relatives relate to us. It also influences parenting by defining expectations of how children should behave, the tasks they should perform, what girls and boys should be like, and even how they should express their emotions, the places where they can play, and what they can and should be told.
That's what gender is all about. It's what a male or female is expected to be, think, feel, and do. So we expect all boys will grow up to be men and like women, and all girls will grow up to be women and like men.
That deep emotional, romantic, and sexual attraction is what we call sexual orientation, which includes having intimate and sexual relationships. Most people are heterosexual, that is, they form a male female couple. However, this is not always the case. There are women who feel emotionally, sentimentally, and sexually attracted to other women, as there are also men who like, feel, and are emotionally and sexually attracted to other men. These people are called homosexuals. Women are lesbians and men are gay. And there are people who are bisexual, who like both women and men. There are different types of sexual orientations.
I have also heard that people can identify as transgender. What does trans mean, Carolina?
Trans people do not identify with the sex they are born. These are individuals who are born as males, raised as boys, but identify as a woman, or individuals who were born females, were raised as girls, but identify as males. Other people identify with characteristics of both women and men, and others with none of these characteristics. In general, trans people often feel an intense discomfort with their body and with the social guidelines assigned to that particular body. This may lead them to transition to the gender which they identify by using different tools. They may change their names on official documents if that's possible in their country. They can make a social transition by changing the way they dress, they do their hair, walk, move, and speak. They can undergo surgery, hormone treatments, get psychological support, or a combination of all of these tools. For example, in Belize, there are no laws or other measures to protect trans people from discrimination, violence, and abuse, and ensure equality before the law. Prejudice and social stigma are part of the daily experiences of trans Belizeans. For example, let's look at some data. Only 52.8% of trans people have completed their primary or pre primary school or a trade certificate. So, this puts them in disadvantage of getting a well paying, decent job. 41.6% of trans people report doing sex work to generate income. Trans women report difficulty in getting or keeping jobs and experiencing rejection from employers. And 63.8% of trans respondents reported being scared while walking in public, with 75% experiencing verbal harassment in the community and in public transportation.
And what's the difference between somebody that's transgender and homosexual?
So, homosexual, whether gay or lesbians, experience a sexual orientation that's different from the traditional one. They're attracted to people of the same sex. On the other hand, trans people do not accept their sex, their birth body. What we expect from women and men is part of our culture, the way we work, the ideas, our beliefs, and symbols we share, the customs we have, what we like and what we dislike, and what we think is good and not so good or even undesirable. All of these norms, these values, and attitudes are at play at work in the way we relate to our bosses, our colleagues, customers, suppliers, and in our private life with friends and family. Estella and dear listeners, imagine you have just received an invitation to a colleague's baby shower. The invitation reads: Baby shower. It is a boy and his name is Jefferson. Sunday, October 13th, 2 p.m. Dear listeners, Stella, what would you give Jefferson as a gift? What color would be that gift?
Hmm. I would buy him a blue jumpsuit with a truck or a tractor, Carolina.
And what led you to choose that specific color?
Well, blue is for boys and pink is for girls. We use those colours in their clothes and things for their room. And the car and the tractor are typical boys' things. They like those things strong, heavy, manly. And for the girls, we use pink and pastel colours, and we usually give them dolls, teddy bears, or soft and cuddly things. And when they're older, we give them things for the house, the little kitchen to cook, the mop, the broom to clean, and babies to take care of.
See, this is very interesting because those baby and childhood gifts seem to be foretelling things in working life. Men generally work in jobs that require physical strength, such as construction and farm work, plowing, planting, and harvesting, driving tractors, while women are engaged in jobs that have to do more with people. They tend to be assistants, nurses, teachers, domestic workers, or engaged in works that require some sort of delicacy, attention to detail, such as weeding seeds or sorting and packaging fruit in packaging plants.
I think that we believe that girls naturally are more caring and tender, and that we always encourage them to play with dolls and babies and housework. And that's because they're naturally tidy and have good handwriting. They are naturally better or more suited towards positions of secretaries and assistants, or even taking notes in meetings. And we think that the ones we find pretty are the right ones for the reception of the company, or even to be presenters and actresses on the television. Now I realize that the same gentleness, tenderness, and emotional aspects of women take points away when looking for jobs where reason, physical strength, and leadership are valued, and which are also the highest paying positions. And what happens if a man wears pink, Carolina?
In my opinion, nothing, because for me, colors don't have sex or gender. They're simply just colors. And all humans can enjoy them, whether in the clothes we wear, in the shoes we decide to buy, and even in the color of our toys or in our hair. However, it has become naturalized that pink and pastels are delicate colors and suitable only for girls, and that stronger colors such as blue or green are appropriate for boys. But this is a relatively recent idea. Notice that the images of baby Jesus, Jesus the infant, he is usually dressed in pink, while the Virgin Mary is usually dressed in blue and white.
We've also been taught that real men should be big, muscular, strong, with a deep and manly voice. And of course, when men don't live up to those expectations, they can be bullied or even diminish their manhood.
You know what, Estella? Let's do a test. Guess who's singing here? A man or a woman?
Mi farò senza io dice, non vivrò senza il mio amor. Mi farò, dove andrò, che farò senza il mio amor. Dove andrò senza il mio amor.
Well, it's obvious. It's a woman because of its delicate, very high pitched voice.
Well, now the moment of truth. Let me introduce Samuel Marino, a Venezuelan male soprano.
Well, I was surprised. It seemed to me that this example shows very clearly what gender is and how those characteristics influence the opportunities, occupations, and jobs we end up having. Those roles assigned to babies, then to boys and girls, and continuing through teenage years and into adulthood can become a straitjacket.
Yes, as long as we keep believing and thinking that they are male and female occupations, that the masculine belongs to the public sphere, highly valued and remunerated, and that the feminine belongs to the private sphere with little or no recognition and pay. That boys and men are naturally good at jobs involving physical strength and stamina, leadership and politics, and that girls and women are only fit to be mothers, to do housework, care and be the emotional support of their families and care for others, whether it be babies, children, the elderly, the sick, or disabled. The division of labor between women and men is known as the sexual division of labor. And this is full of prejudices, stereotypes, and gender biases.
And what are the consequences of this?
There are several, but one of them is the difference in pay. When we believe that men's time, their knowledge, and work is more valuable than women's, then women are paid less for similar or equally valuable work. Another consequence is related to women's overburdened caregiving responsibilities, which makes them less available for employment, not because women don't want to work, but because they're already so busy with household chores that they do not have the time and the energy. Notice that some women take so much care of other people in their lives that they run out of time and energy to take care of themselves. Those women who do manage to become employed generally do so in less sophisticated positions that do not employ much technology or do not require specific technical skills. This results in limited opportunities for promotion, advancement, and lower pay compared to men. Most working women have a double working day, the first shift at home and the other one at the company. So they have less time and energy to continue their education, take care of themselves and their health, even practice sports or have some recreational activities. Assigning men the only responsibility of working and bringing money into the house has taken away their possibility of being responsible and present fathers in the upbringing of their sons and daughters, creating strong bonds with them. It also prohibits them from visiting and caring for the sick and needy family members, or even providing care in their communities, and more so, learning to take care of themselves.
I just realized that if men don't have the same caregiving and family responsibilities, they're free to take on overtime, travel, or work at the weekends, while there's usually a woman at home taking care of the house and the family.
Stella, this shows us very clearly how the world of work values paternity and sanctions maternity. These forms are changing slowly, but they are changing. Today, we speak of new masculinities. What this means is that we're already thinking, and some men are practicing, and other women accepting that men also have feelings, and that they also cry, and that they also enjoy being responsible and caring and active fathers, husbands, sons, and brothers, and that they can and want to take care of their loved ones beyond the economic contribution and security that they provide.
For men, new masculinities can free them from the gender patterns we have been talking about. I've observed with my brother that he no longer says that he'll help at home. He takes equal responsibility for looking after the family, raising their children, going to school, activities, and events, taking them to the doctor, while his wife is doing other things with the children, like helping them with their homework or taking the children to the park. Household chores are always split equally amongst the family. In the long run, I believe this is good because it allows us to balance our burdens and frees us from those limiting thoughts and ideas.
If we look at what happens in horticulture and fruit growing, especially for exports, where more or less 50% of all paid labor is female, women are generally in the packing and post harvest areas where they pick, sort, wash, chop, and pack food. These activities value characteristics that are traditionally assigned to women, such as their capacity to focus and to be detail oriented. They're also similar to food preparation tasks at home. This is exactly what we've been talking about, and it explains why these things happen, which is not just a random solution or occurrence. There is a logic of inequality behind it that is supported by gender biases and stereotypes. In addition, women in agriculture are generally employed in temporary positions or dependent on crop cycles, harvest, and production. And this leads in turn to greater job instability compared to men. To give you an idea, historically, the oil palm sector has mainly employed workers for harvesting and the extraction of plants, which requires great physical effort. Gradually, women have been hired for the administrative and financial areas and in tasks that require attention to detail and care, such as the nursery. As more women graduate as engineers and technicians, they're hired in the sector. This is not to say that everything is negative. Agribusinesses have made a huge investment in rural areas to improve the living conditions of communities, such as public services or education, care for the environment, and they're also major generations of employment. The issue is that these benefits have not been distributed equally among women in rural areas. So, for example, women in general are more affected by inadequate health and safety conditions, or even experience greater job instability, lower incomes, and limited access to education.
Ah, so that's what gender equality is all about, that both men and women can be what they want to be and do what they love the most and what they are most talented at. So, gender equality in the workplace becomes a reality when there is equal participation, treatment, and access to opportunity among all the workers and employees, women and men. It involves recognizing and valuing equally different behaviors, aspirations, and needs, regardless of gender.
Exactly. And as you raised at the beginning of our conversation, gender equality is an issue of the enjoyment of human rights, which includes labor rights. And when this happens, it really decreases inequality, discrimination, and violence, and supports enterprise productivity and sustainability. It is good for all parties that companies are sustainable and responsible. Please note that inequality does not necessarily occur because men and women work in different occupation and jobs. Inequality occurs because, in general, women's time, knowledge, and what they do is less valued in our societies. The skills and aptitudes that we consider innate to girls and women are valued less and therefore paid less. At the end, this leads women to enjoy less of their rights. They have less autonomy to make their decisions in a free and informed manner, or even to participate freely and to access and control resources and income. The issue is not that men and women are different, but that life experiences are unequal and often violent. Stella, it is not the same to be born and raised as a man in the city like Medellin, San Jose, or Miami as it is to be born in the countryside in Belize, or Colombia, or Honduras, or even to be born as an indigenous woman in Guatemala as it is to be born a woman of European descent in Costa Rica. In all of these cases, the potential is tremendous in all human beings, only that we give advantages and greater opportunities to some, and this is accumulating over time and is opening gaps in the possibilities of life and well being for all people.
But the issue of gender equality isn't new. It's been a commitment of governments, business, trade unions, community, and even indigenous organizations since the 1950s. It's now even reflected in international and national standards. This is one of the reasons why Fyffes is doing this course. Gender equality is an issue that benefits all of us, every individual, company, community, and country. And how can we accelerate change?
Estela, the good news is that just as we create these gender roles and stereotypes and the sexual division of labor, we can also change and transform them. The first step is to look into the mirror and make the decision to change.
What do you mean?
The easiest and the quickest way to move forward towards gender equality is to look into the mirror. Let's look at ourselves and identify our own gender prejudices and stereotypes, not to judge ourselves, not to blame ourselves, but to recognize, to understand, and become fully responsible for what we're thinking, what we're saying, how we feel, and what we're doing. These answers will allow us to become honest with ourselves and to identify where do these beliefs and norms come from. Was this something they told me at school? Or perhaps I saw it in my family? Or maybe it was something I saw in soap operas or Facebook or on TikTok or in pop songs? Having identified that prejudice, bias, or gender stereotype, that discrimination, whether against men or in favor of women, or in rejection of homosexuals, lesbians, or any person or group, then it is time to take concrete action and to commit to transform and change that idea, that feeling, that value regarding what is feminine and what is masculine.
Thank you, Carolina. You make it easy for us to practice. What I believe is if our children grow up in environments of equal opportunity and responsibility, we'll have more men and women with a neutral mentality who will be empowered to venture into more areas of knowledge and work that they really want and desire, and not only what they get.
That's right. Gender equality is beneficial for everyone. With greater respect and equality in opportunities and participation, not only companies win, but society as a whole. Let's close this chapter with a quick summary of the 8 terms we explored today. Do you agree, Stella?
Yes, let's do it.
Great. So let's start with what is sex?
It's what we were born with, our biology, our body. Okay, Carolina, what's gender?
Gender are the behaviors that are socially assigned to men and women in personal, family, and work life. Traditionally, women are associated with motherhood, housework, and child rearing, and men as breadwinners and being strong, courageous, and independent. What is gender bias?
Gender bias is unjustified and generally hostile ideas or opinion that generate emotions in individuals. For example, I only like male bosses because women are very emotional. Or some people mightn't feel comfortable with a male preschool teacher. Okay, Carolina, what is gender stereotypes?
A mental shortcut to define and relate to specific groups, whether women, men, or the LGBTQ plus community. For example, women are irrational or women are caring and delicate. It is better to hire a man because women get pregnant and then they ask for many permissions. Men don't know how to take care of babies and children, or men are better at mathematics and technical occupations. What are gender biases, Stella?
Gender biases are stereotypes that drive inequity. It occurs when sex and gender are not considered in a company's policies, such as when personnel are selected or for promotions. What is discrimination, Carolina?
3 key words. It is any distinction, exclusion, or preference that leads to the nullification or impairment of equal opportunities and treatment in people's lives, including employment and occupation. Discrimination can occur in many grounds, sex and gender, which is what concerns us here in this audio learning program. But it can also be based upon race, ethnicity, religion, political opinion, nationality, social origin. What is the sexual division of labor?
The sexual division of labor is when we organize the distribution of work between men and women according to established gender roles. We have assigned to men the paid work that generally takes place in the public space, and to women the unpaid work that takes place within the home. We tend to value the time and work done by a man more than that done by a woman. Okay, last question, Carolina. What is gender equality?
It's the focus of this program, Stella, is the equal access to and enjoyment of rights, responsibilities, and opportunities for all, men and women. It is essential to create prosperous, peaceful workplaces, communities, and countries. We did it, Stella. Thank you for being a great co host in this chapter, allowing us to better understand and have an insight into gender equality in business.
Thank you, Carolina, for the invitation and for having this conversation, and especially for the practical tips that I invite everyone to practice.
All right, we've come to the end of our very first chapter of Cultivating Equality Stories of Women and Men. Final reflections of these chapters. The first one is that we often have a very limited perspective of our potential. I, on the other hand, not only believe but have a profound certainty that each one of you has a tremendous potential. It's just that sometimes that potential gets tangled up, trapped in the limiting beliefs and ideas that everyone has. Everyone has become a sort of their own prison, but that prison is an illusion. It is like being asleep. It's time to wake up. It's time to transform ourselves. That's why it is so important to do the exercise of looking into the mirror. So I encourage you to really do it. You will be surprised. My second reflection is that if gender norms and everything that derives from that was created, then it means that they're not fixed or static. So if they're dynamic, then it means that we have the possibility of changing it towards cultural patterns and relationships that are more respectful, dignified, and equitable. And now, As usual, I would like to say goodbye with this phrase from the India Mahatma Gandhi, which captured me when I first read it. Watch your thoughts, for they will become your words. Watch your words, because they will become your actions. Watch your actions, because they will become your habits. Watch your habits, because they will become your destiny. So, you are then the creator of your own destiny, of the relationships you foster, and the way you view the world. Gender equality is a habit that is sustained by our actions, words, and thoughts. Thank you to each and every one of you who is listening. Infinite thanks for your time. Infinite thanks for your attention. And see you in the next chapter, where we will continue to cultivate gender equality.